So, the Sony a5100 is a budget mirrorless camera often recommended for video work, usually by me. So you've bought one, you've set it up, and you've started to record, and well, it looks and sounds a bit like this video here, when the people who've recommended it, their videos sound and look like this. In this video we'll go through camera setup tips and tricks and budget things that you can buy to make your Sony a5100 videos look as good as possible. So don't worry, the Sony a5100 is a really good camera for recording video. In fact, I'm using it to record this video here. But there are a few things that you can do to improve the professionalism of your videos for cheaply or even for free. And there are a couple of settings that you're going to want to check or change to make sure you're getting the best quality video from your a5100. First of which is the file format settings. Make sure this is set to XAVCS. This can be found on the menus under Camera Settings, Tab 2, File Format. So this is the largest video format setting, so it will take up more space on your memory card, but it is better quality than AVC HD and MP4. And this will definitely be noticeable in the final results. If you want a full explanation on how these video formats work and what the differences are, I've made this video here which explains it in more detail. You can also choose the frame rate that you're recording your video in on the same page. And that's by changing the record setting. 60p means 60 frames per second and 30p 30 frames per second. Now in Europe these options are 50p and 25p just because of different region settings. I think for most YouTube videos recording in the lower of those two options, so 30 frames per second, will look pretty good, but you've got that option of 60 frames per second there if you want that smoother kind of footage. It works well for stuff like B-roll and kind of other footage that you might be doing alongside your two camera pieces. That is a quick setting, definitely worth looking at to improve the quality of your videos. So next we're going to look at some cheap or even free things that you can do to improve the quality of your videos. And the most important of these is the lighting. Now you'll have noticed at the start of this video the lighting wasn't as good as it is now. Now it wasn't as bad as it often could be because I was just using natural light from the window and no other light. And now it just so happens that the sun is very bright today, so it wasn't too bad, and a lot of the time you will be able to rely on natural light. Unfortunately, if you live in a country like mine, which is often rainy or overcast, that natural light is either going to be inconsistent or just not very bright at all, or even worse, I find it's uneven, as the sun might go in and out behind the clouds while you're recording, changing the consistency of your shot a lot. And also, if the sun is very bright and it is directly on your face, that also isn't going to look very good because one side of your face might be really bright and the other side really dark, and that just isn't going to look particularly professional. So what I recommend is definitely use natural light as probably your main light source, but probably pick up a couple of one or two extra lights to use in conjunction with natural light will help make your videos look more professional. And I usually use two lights, one softbox light and one smaller LED panel light. The softbox light I use is the Ralino 800 watt and costs around $40, but it is often on sale for even cheaper than that. It comes with a diffuser so the light isn't too harsh on your eyes and is very nice and bright. It also comes with a tripod to mount the light to at any height up to about 6 foot, I think. I've used this light for about a year now on all my videos, and I think it's really helped improve the quality and the look of my videos, especially compared to the ones beforehand. I'll show a couple of quick examples now of what the light used to be like without using a light like this, even if there was half decent natural light as well. So as you can see, it does make your shots look a lot more professional, especially when paired with natural light. So in this video here, I've got natural light coming from this side from the window, and I've got my softbox light just here. Now, say if I turn this softbox off for a second, there we go. As I said, the natural light is quite bright today, and you can really see that on one side of my face, but the other side is much darker. And with the softbox on, I think it improves the professionalism of your shots. The other light I use is a small LED panel light. Now, I've not got this on at the moment, so I'll just show you what it looks like. I usually put it on a little tripod like this, and if I turn it on, you'll see that it is very bright. Wow. Unfortunately, because of its size, I wouldn't say that this is a replacement that you could use instead of the softbox light, but it is very good to use if the natural light is particularly poor. I would put it at the same side as my window, and it'll just add a little bit of extra light on me if the softbox light is overpowering the natural light. So just a nice little option to have, and it even comes with a couple of different coloured kind of filters that you can put on front. So if you want a warmer kind of colour, you can put an orange filter on it, so it can just add a different effect to your shot. Again, this panel costs around $40 new. If you're only going to get one of these lights, I would say the softbox light, but obviously that is much larger. You might not have space to be able to have something like that. Now, there are smaller softbox lights available. I'll link a couple of those as well. But these are the two lights that I use, and I think these are the main things that make a big difference in making your shots look more professional when using the Sony a5100. Now, another really important thing that you can improve and is often overlooked, and that is the audio of your videos. Now, I think everyone's instinct is, well, I want my videos to look better, so I will get a better camera. But when it comes to videos for things like YouTube, where people are listening to it, people are actually more likely to turn off quicker if the audio is bad than the visuals are bad, which does take a bit of getting your head around, but you can see why, especially if audio is crackly or really echoey in the room. It just doesn't sound as good, it doesn't make you want to listen to it quite as much, and so you're more likely to turn off. Improving your audio is a big step that you can take to make your videos sound better. Now, thankfully, the Sony a5100 does have built-in stereo microphones, which sound a bit like this. Not too bad, but in a room like this that I've got now, it's a very echoey room, and so you'll hear loads of ambience, and it'll also, any other background noises that are going on, so if you've got you're recording in a loud house, or the street noise, it's much more likely to pick it up than a dedicated microphone. Also, a downside of the Sony a5100 is that it doesn't have a built-in mic input. You can't just plug another microphone directly into the camera and record the audio in that way. Very frustrating. It means that you need to get a separate way of recording your audio, whether that's an audio recording device or a microphone. So a dedicated audio recording device is something a bit like this, the Sony PX470, which I used for quite a lot of my videos for a long time. It basically has stereo mics on the top, but also has an input for a microphone so that you can just plug in a microphone and set that up, whether that's a little lapel mic or something like that, or any other kind of mic that fits that smaller jack size. Now, this is great because it's a tiny little device you can put in your pocket, so if you wanted to record to camera while walking around or something like that, it's way more discreet than a full-size microphone. I just find that for the type of videos that I do, that I'm normally in the studio anyway when I'm recording to camera, so the quality of it isn't quite as good as a dedicated microphone. The Sony PX470 you can pick up for around $50, so it is a reasonably low budget option. But for the type of videos that I make, I'm generally sat in the studio setting anyway. I don't need the portability of an audio device such as the Sony PX470. So for my videos, I use a dedicated microphone. Currently, I am using this one here. I'm not sure this will quite show up here. Just see the edge of it there. I just keep it just out of shot here. Dedicated microphones are larger and more expensive than audio recorders such as the one discussed before. But the audio quality will be improved. And you have two main options when it comes to microphones: condenser microphones and dynamic microphones. Condenser microphones are often recommended for recording videos. You can have them a bit further away from you and the sound quality will be very full and very clear. Why I don't use a condenser microphone currently is that it does pick up quite a lot of background noise. If you're in a louder environment, it will pick up more of that ambient noise, especially if you're in an echoey room like I am. But it does provide very clear and full audio, and as I said before, you can have it further away from you. The type of microphone that I'm using here is a dynamic microphone. Now the audio quality is still very good, but it needs to be much, much closer to you, so that's why it's just out of shot here. It's probably a few inches away from my mouth, just out of shot. It being a more directional microphone means that it doesn't pick up much background noise, which is better for my situation currently. And both are very viable options depending on your situation. A good quality condenser microphone, which is recommended a lot, is something like the Blue Yeti, which costs around $130. For a dynamic microphone, it'll be a little cheaper, maybe around $100. The one I use is a Shure SM58, though that is an XLR microphone, so you'll need an audio interface, but there are plenty of USB options available out there. But if you're on a really low budget and you can't afford either of these, consider playing around with the microphone on your phone. Now, it's not going to be as good as either of these options discussed, but you might be able to get it in a position closer than the camera discreetly so you can record, and you might even be able to pick up a lapel microphone which you'd just be able to put there, which you could plug directly into your phone. Now, I wouldn't recommend this as the top option, but if you're on a really tight budget, it's definitely something worth trying first. So next we're going to talk about lenses. If you're using the Sony a5100 straight out of the box, you're probably using the 16 to 50mm kit lens that came with the camera. And the good news is this is a pretty decent lens for a variety of situations. It has a decent zoom range, which means that you don't always have to have the camera in exactly the same spot, and it is reasonably sharp. Unfortunately, it doesn't have the widest aperture. With its widest aperture of f3.5 at 16mm, this means that it's just not going to have the best low light performance and might not perform that well indoors. It also means that you're not going to get that much background blur, which you can see in a shot like this. It does help make things look a little bit more professional and keep the focus on your point of focus, which is probably yourself. But the kit lens is wide enough for indoor use, so you're not too zoomed in if you're using it in a situation like this. And if you have no extra budget for an extra lens, I would definitely persevere with the kit lens for as long as possible. But once you notice that the camera is starting to bump up the ISO when you're recording in darker situations, ISO is adding extra artificial light to brighten up your shots, but this adds extra grain, which will look less professional. Also, the more you zoom in with the kit lens, the narrower the aperture gets. So if you're recording at the full 50mm, your shots will be even darker than at 16mm, which means you'll have to bump up the ISO even more, and again, it will make things look less professional. But in a well-lit, consistent environment, the kit lens is definitely good enough, especially if you are on a tight budget and can't afford to upgrade. And upgrading to a prime, wide aperture lens will definitely improve the look of your video. Currently, I'm using the Sigma 16mm f1.4. This is a fixed focal length, so you can't zoom in or out from 16mm, but it has a wide aperture of f1.4. This allows a lot more light into it than the kit lens, which gives it much better low light performance, good for if you're in a darker room or any room really where you're having to add extra light, and has shallower depth of field like you can see here to get those blurrier backgrounds. This wider maximum aperture in comparison to the kit lens means that you'll be able to get more light into the camera from exactly the same situation, from exactly the same lighting with lower ISO, so basically less grain. It's a great video lens for static shots mounted on a tripod, such as videos like this. But unfortunately, the downside is the price. Coming in at about $380, you'll be paying more for this than probably you will have paid for the camera. Not ideal if you're on a budget. For a full review of the Sigma 16mm, you can check out this video here, where you can decide whether it's a good lens for you. But this type of upgrade does definitely make a difference, but in the short run, if you're just starting out, you'll probably see better results from improving your lighting to begin with. Some other quick tips to improve the professionalism of your videos is basically your recording environment. It sounds simple, but keeping your location clean and free of distractions, or just having a few well-placed things in the background, which might help enhance the direction of your videos really. So I just have a few camera bits and bobs up there and a few other tech related things which fit the tone of the channel, I hope. It will just help things look more on brand and more professional. Now, a lot of other YouTubers have kind of nice neon lights or a few just little accent lights like an Edison bulb, the kind of filament bulb in the background. They can look quite nice, so I maybe pick up one of something like that if you just want to add a little extra bit of something in your backgrounds. I'd also definitely recommend using a tripod to keep your camera as steady as possible. You certainly don't want to be recording videos handheld unless that is the shaky effect is what you are going for. You can pick up 6-foot tripods like the one I'm using here now, really cheap, about $30 on Amazon. So that is definitely something that you can look into doing. Of course, if you don't have the budget for that, just make sure you've got your camera somewhere completely secure where it's not going to move around at a good height so you can look directly into the lens. That will probably be good enough in the short term. If you use all these tips in combination, you'll find a massive improvement of your videos than if you just turned on the A5100 and press record. Are there any other tips that you use to make your videos look better? Let me know in the comments below. But if you've enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing to the channel and dropping a like on the video. But until next time, see ya.